really well. I don't go through grade 9 and 10 thoroughly because it's 2 hours a week. But what I would be covering, I'll be covering the most important things in grade 9 and 10 for you to be able to do really well in the math courses in 11, 12 of help. And basically, I teach you how to see things a lot better. I'm very good at what I do. I make math a lot simpler than a lot of teachers out there. So go ahead, register. You will only gain. Okay. So we'll just wait for everybody to get in. This class, by the way, so it's full. So the first thing I want to talk to you about doing common denominator when you adding fractions. Okay. So when we're adding fractions, we have if the denominators are the same, if the denominators are not the same, then we have to do a common denominator. So I'm going to show you one way of doing common denominator is a bit different from what you're used to. Okay. So the first thing, how do you figure out the lowest common denominator? Always go to the biggest number on the bottom in the denominator of the questions. Now you look at this and see if the other two numbers go evenly in this number. If they do, then yes, this is your common denominator. And here it does. So 8 will be your common denominator. Both of them go into 8. But let's say if it doesn't go into 8, let's argue this was a 3, okay? So then you say, okay, 4 goes into 8, but it doesn't. And if 3 doesn't, then what you look for the next multiple of 8, which is 16. Okay. So once you get 16, now you ask yourself, 4 goes into 16, but 3 doesn't. Okay. We're just assuming it's not a 3, it's not a 2, it's a 3. So then you go to the next multiple of the big number, which is 24, and then 3 goes into 24, then you'll be assured that this is your lowest common denominator. So that's how you look for your lowest common denominator. If you multiply all these numbers together to find out what the common denominator is, abstain from that, because that just gets you into bigger numbers that you have to reduce later and so on. But so just this is how you do it. You go to the biggest number, see if the other numbers go into that number, then this is the common denominator. If they don't, then you start doing the multiples of the big number till you find out all of them go into that number. Okay. So but it's not a 3, it's a 2. So therefore 8 here will be my lowest common denominator. Now I want you to look at what I'm doing. A lot of you haven't seen it and you say, what happened there? But if you learn how to do it this way, you'll be, fractions will be a lot easier when you add them and subtract them. Okay. So what's the way I do it? So I found my common denominator. I work from here. Okay. I go 8 divided by 4, it gives me 2. This 2 I have to multiply it to the top, it gives me 6. Okay. And then I write my plus sign. And I go 8 divided by 2, I do the same thing, it gives me 4. So 4 is what I multiply to the top. 4 times 1 gives me 4. Minus, I do 8 divided by 8 as well, because that's a minus there. So now 8 divided by 8 gives me 1. 1 is what I multiply to the top. 1 times 5 gives me 5. And therefore 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. And the answer is 5 over 8. Okay. So that's how I do it. But remember what I said in my last lecture, I said, if you have a way that you're following, just make sure when you're doing it, you're getting the same answer as the teacher, and that's fine as well. A lot of you will say, common denominator is 8, then I have to multiply this by 4, and I multiply this by 4. I have to multiply this by 2, and I have to multiply this by 2 to make the common denominator the same. When you do that, just make sure you're not writing 6 over 8 plus 4 over 8 minus 5 over 8. We call it common denominator. Why don't you just write it once? You're okay to do this, but just always write the common denominator once. And why am I emphasizing this? Because when you get to grade 11 and especially 12, if you're writing a lot of common denominators, it just gets you in trouble. You don't start seeing answers. You don't start reading between the lines. So just do that all the time. So you're okay to do this, but just write the common denominator once. Okay, but just to know, do it your own way. If you're not following, you don't like my method, that's fine. Just do it your own way. Get me the same answer while I'm doing these questions. So that's the first thing I want to get out of the way. That's when you're doing adding fractions, you're doing common denominator. That's how I do it. You keep on doing the same thing if you like doing that, but just write it like this. Don't write it like this. Okay. So this is the answer for this question. We're going to go to the next slide. So the next slide here, multiplying fractions. I think I talked about multiplying fractions last time. And I said, when you multiply in fractions, please don't multiply the tops together and the bottoms together. When you multiply in fractions, try to reduce. How do you reduce? You reduce diagonally this way or this way. Also, you could reduce within the same fractions. So what I mean here, so if I add here times 3/9, okay, like just add this to the question. That's not part of the question, but let's say did that. Now I could reduce this to 1/3. I could do that when I multiply in fractions. So it doesn't have to be always diagonally. Okay, so just keep in mind that you could reduce within the fractions, because what first thing when we're learning fractions, or at least what your teacher is supposed to teach you is how to reduce fractions, even before multiplying and adding fractions, how to reduce fractions. That's what we're supposed to teach students. Okay, but now let's go back to this question here. So now here is 1/2 times 8/5. What does that equal? We gotta look diagonally and see if we could read 1 and 5. 1 is reduced this lowest term, so we're not gonna be able to reduce this way, but this way, definitely, I know 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. Once you get there, and you cannot reduce any further, then you multiply the tops together, so 1 times 4 gives me 4, and 1 times 5 gives me 5. Yeah, that's how you do it. Now, always remember, the last question that I write in every slide is your homework, because lots of people ask me for homework, and some are not, but there's going to be homework in this, just so that you could go back and review what we've done. I'm not going to make the homework intense. I understand all of you are doing school full-time right now, and the last thing you need is extra homework. But math is practice. So just in every slide, the last question, I leave it for you as a question, okay, for you to do as homework. Now let's go to number 2 right here. So the first thing I want you to do is still multiplying here. And last time I said when we're multiplying, we count how many negatives we have, and then we could decide if the answer is going to be negative or positive. Why you want to do this, especially here, because you don't want those signs to be in the way. You just want to ignore the signs, just deal with the numbers. So you make it look like this after that. Okay. So here, I know the answer is going to be negative, because why? We have 3 negatives. I said when you're multiplying, if you have an even number of negatives, the answer is positive. But if you have an odd number of negatives, like here we have 3 negatives, then the answer will be negative. Okay. So just from last lesson, I have that on my YouTube channel. Go back and watch this if you're, I think 1 student or 2, that maybe 3 students is their first day today in the class, but this is how it goes. Go watch the integers, because you know, you don't want to be going into grade 10 and 11 and not being able to do -3 minus 6, and you have to do it in your calculator. Trust me, don't do everything in the calculator. It will slow you down. Because math is terrain of thinking, you know, and you have to be thinking all the time. You're not going everything, go back to the calculator, go back to the calculator. But let's go back to this question. So 3 negatives, that's an odd number of negatives. When we're multiplying, we know the answer is going to be negative. Now I'm just going to ignore the negatives. I don't even care about them anymore. Okay. Now it's 15/2 times 45/2. I'm going to look diagonally like this. 2 and 2, they cancel each other out. They give you 1, because 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. The 15 and 45, 15 goes into itself once, and it goes into 45 3 times. Okay. Some students wouldn't see that right away, but they see 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 45 9 times. That's okay to do that. But then you still have to continue. Go, oh, okay, now 3 goes into itself once, and 3 goes into 9 3 times, which it gives you this. Okay. So if you had to do it a little bit more because the numbers were big on you and you want to go little by little, you could do that. But I saw that 15 goes into itself once, and it goes into 45 3 times. Now at this stage, you cannot reduce anymore. You multiply the tops together, which is 1, and you multiply the bottoms together. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay. Before I go any further, how you doing, guys? Just send me on the chat. Everything is going okay. If you have a question, ask, because I don't want to get any further if you have a question. Okay. It's okay if you don't get it, ask, because I could go back and ask you. Yeah. So negative 15 over 2, the same as 15 over 2. Yes, that's, we're not there yet, are we? Yeah. So exactly. Beautiful, Yusuf. Yes, that's getting rid of the negatives that way. But for me, I just count how many negatives we have. If it's odd, I make the answer negative. If it's even, I make the answer positive. Okay, when we go to adding fractions, though, we gotta get back to that. What you said, negative 15 over negative 2, you should change it to 15 over 2 right away. Great. Yeah. All right. So here we multiplying. Now, can we agree the answer is going to be positive? Because we have two negative signs. If we have two negative signs, that's an even number of negative signs. So the answer will be positive. Again, if it's odd, then it's going to be negative. So the negatives, if they are even, only when multiplying and dividing, eh? Okay, don't mix that up with adding and subtracting. Then if it's even, it's a plus. If it's odd, it's minus. Then we know the answer is plus. Then we could just ignore these and we don't care about that at all. Now here, if I look diagonally, 2 and 7, 2 doesn't go into 7 evenly, but 3 and 6, definitely 3 goes into itself once, it goes into 6 twice. Okay. Now I cannot reduce anymore. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 7 is 7, so 4 over 7. Yeah. Now I want you to understand also that sometimes you see brackets like this and between them a multiplication sign like that, so that's multiplication. If you see two brackets besides one another like this and nothing in between them, it still means multiplication. You could write a multiplication sign in there. Also, if you see it this way, that's multiplication. Also this way right here. You know, so let me just go back to this now. Don't think this is 8 over 3 minus 9 over 4. No, it is not. This is not addition. Why? Because this brackets right here, it means this multiplied by this. Because when we put something inside the brackets with the sign, that takes away that it's not minusing anymore, it's multiplying. So this basically means 8 over 3 times negative 9 over 4. Yeah. So this is one thing I want to make clear to you. Does that make sense, or should I repeat this? All right. So let me erase this now. So we're clear that's multiplication. Also, let me make something clear as well. All right. Something that I'm going to talk to you about. Negative 2 over 3 is the same as 2 over negative 3. Is the same as negative 2 over 3. All of these here are the same. Why are they the same? You remember at the beginning of last week's session, I said, when you do, well, maybe I didn't see it. I say it to my students all the time. When you have a fraction, 3 over 4, this here means division. That's what it means. Okay. So if it means division, then this is a negative number divided by a positive number. The top is negative divided by, when you divide negative by a positive, you still get a negative, don't you? Also, if you divide a positive by a negative, you're still gonna get a negative. If you have a negative in the front and you divide in positive by positive, it's still gonna be negative and positive, which gives me negative. So that's why all of this are, or all of these are the same. This one here, when you have it in this format, especially when you're adding and subtracting, get rid of this. Just put the negative right here. Always put the negative right here. When it's sometimes it's very important to do that, okay? Because we don't, especially when adding and subtracting fractions, never leave the negative on the bottom. And let me now go on to the last question here. Now we agree this is multiplication. You could, if you like, you could change it to 8 over 3 times negative 9 over 4. But you could leave it like this, and it means multiplication as well. Now the answer is going to be negative because we have one negative number, then positive times negative is negative, or it's odd. So when it's whenever that we have an odd number of negatives, it's going to be negative, either or, you know. I think this here, we use it when we have 4 fractions multiplied by one another and you have negatives all over the place. So you could get rid of that dilemma just by applying what I'm telling you on top there. So this answer is going to be negative. Now you reduce. Okay, so 3 goes into itself once. It goes into 9 3 times. 4 goes into itself once. It goes into 8 twice. Now we have on top 2 times 3 is 6. On the bottom, we have 1 times 1, which is 1. Writing 1 on the bottom, you don't have to. It doesn't matter, because when we said multiplication, fractions mean division. So 6 divided by 1 just give you 6. So you don't really need to put the 1 on the bottom. All right. So now I'm going to go to the next slide, but I'll give you 10 seconds to, if you have a question to ask. So just tell me which number it is. Write the number. If you have a question, I'll wait for 10 seconds, but it wouldn't be wrong, right? If you put a 1 underneath, no, it wouldn't be, but it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. That means you don't understand. Sorry, I don't want to be that blunt, but to understand fractions, the first thing you have to understand about a fraction, it's the numerator and the denominator, it's a division relationship. So if it's a division relationship, if you have 6 over 1, then it's just 6. If it's 9 over 1, it's just 9. Okay, and that's why you don't have to write that one underneath. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next slide. So division is nothing different from multiplication. Okay, nothing different except for one step that you have to do before you start doing, when you're dividing fraction, one step you do, and the step is called keep the 1 over 8 the same, switch the division to multiplication, flip means you write it upside down. And then you have 1/8 times 2 over 1, you reduce, 2 goes into itself once, it goes into 8 4 times, and the answer is 1 over 4. I guess whoever misses the lesson, they could watch the video. Just they don't have the chance to ask a question though. Okay, now here we have a negative outside of here, we have a negative here, we have a negative here, we have a negative here. Now, can you tell me what the answer is going to be? So just everybody tells me what the answer is going to be, positive or negative. Just write positive, negative, whatever you think it is. Yeah, keep on going. I need to see all of you. Yeah.
Positive.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Nice. Good. I'm happy, because that negative also you have to count it, because this, you know what? Let me tell you something. Okay, here it's like having a -1. It's like -1 times this fraction divided by a fraction, but you don't have to worry about it. Just know it's a negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all division. There's no addition or subtraction. So now the answer is positive. Now, if I know the answer is positive, and you don't have to write that positive, can I rewrite this as keep the 5 over 8? Just ignore those negative signs. Get rid of them. They are a nuisance. Switch and flip. Now you just reduce. 5 and 3 you cannot reduce, but 4 and 8, 4 goes into itself once, it goes into 8 twice, and therefore now you cannot reduce anymore. Multiply the tops together, so 5, multiply the bottoms, 2 and 3, you get 6. You don't really have to write that positive sign, but it just helps you when you get rid of the signs right away and they're not confusing you. Okay, so here we definitely know the answer is going to be negative. Okay, and can we write this as keep 2 over 3, switch and flip? Now looking diagonally this way, we cannot reduce. Looking diagonally this way, we cannot reduce. Looking within the same fraction, we cannot reduce. And therefore, if you cannot reduce, you are left with no other option but to multiply the tops together. 2 times 7 is 14, and 3 times 5 is 15. Yeah. Please, though, please, like, don't do that to all fractions. Always reduce first. Trust me on this one, because when you get into rational expressions in grade 11, if you don't learn how to do the simple things like this, you're going to have a hard time. So reducing, always think, I'm multiplying fractions, dividing fractions, I have to reduce. Don't reduce, division till you change it to multiplication. Don't think, oh, I could reduce now, you know, like let's say if something reduces right away in division, don't reduce it because that will get you in trouble. All right, so just change it to multiplication and then reduce. All right, so here we say that's a plus, here it's a negative 14 over 5. Somehow we don't see this very well. So I'm just gonna rewrite this, okay? It's actually, there's nothing missing from this. So it's negative 10 over 3 divided by 5 over 4. I forgot the last one is homework. I almost did it for you. So come on, guys, you gotta remind me, okay? So I need somebody to remind me. Sometimes I get carried on. You have to have homework because you need to practice. I'm not gonna make it hard for you. You're gonna have about 4 or 5 questions to do for the whole week, all right? So we're gonna go to the next slide. Before I go to the next slide, if you have any questions, please ask before I move on. So 10 seconds and ask, like, don't be shy. Trust me, like, don't be shy. Like, this is the time to learn this and learn it really well. You know, this course here is designed for you. When you get to grade 11, the problems that students have, you will not have them because it's these little problems that get students in trouble. It's not understanding the higher math, but because their basics are, you know, compromised, then they get stuck on doing higher thinking things because the basics are not there. Okay, so I don't see anybody asking any question. Oh, or wait, can you, okay? Can I what? Go to which question, Nigar? Or was that earlier? So I can go back to the last slide if you want, but I'm gonna move on unless you write a question like which one you want me to go over, okay? But I'm gonna move on. Okay, now here we go. Oh, it was earlier? You want me to go back 2 slides back?
Sorry, my mic isn't working.
Say that one more time, Nigar.
My mic isn't really working, so yeah, I was trying to say it earlier.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Is it here?
No, it's fine. But it was before. Like, I don't have anything trouble with.
The 4?
No, I don't need anything else.
Oh, you don't have any trouble anymore.
Yeah,
okay,
it was earlier.
It's
It's
all
just my
good.
mic.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, remember this is homework, guys. Remind me. Okay. Now, adding and subtracting. Here you really have to be smart about getting rid of the negative sign from the bottom. Okay. So if you remember last time, I said if you have -2 minus or plus -3, then you combine these 2 signs because it's positive and negative. This becomes -2 minus 3, and therefore it gives you -5. Okay. So this one here. Also, I said if you have -5 minus -7, these 2 negatives here combine to become positive. So -5 plus 7. So that's what we did last time. This still applies. You know, the basics always apply to everything. So I'm going to apply the same thing. Just for students who weren't here last time, this is what we do when we have 2 signs besides one another like this. I always make them into 1 sign and make it as simple as that. I'll share with you my YouTube video from last time so you could watch it in case you're, you know, you want to see how that works. So now when we're adding and subtracting fractions, I keep this as -2 over 3, okay? Put the negative on top, okay? Even though it's in the front there, put it on that too. Here, exactly what I was saying last time, these 2 signs here, they just become -1 over 4. Now, common denominator. Okay, common denominator here is, does 3 go into 4? It doesn't. So the next multiple of 4, because always the bigger number. Did I miss a lot because I was late? Start. No, you didn't miss a lot. If you're following this, you're doing pretty good, buddy. Yeah, if you're following this, you're doing very good. Could you please repeat? Okay, I'll repeat this. Yeah. So Jumana, so what I'm saying here, this here, the way it looks like this, it's very ugly. It's very confusing. And we don't like the negatives on the bottom of a fraction. We never like that. Okay. But the other thing, when you're adding, so this is an adding, this is not, there's no multiplication here. This is negative 2 over 3 plus 1 over negative 4. But these two signs like that, we don't like them. So what we do, whenever we have a positive and a negative, besides one another like this, we change them to minus, okay? So if it's a negative and a negative, we change it to plus. But if it's a plus and a minus, or like this, then these two here, they just change them into minus. But these two, they change to plus. Negative and negative change to plus, but this will change into minus. So this here, plus and negative right here, written besides one another, just remember to make them adjust into one sign and it's minus. Does that make sense, Jumana? Okay, great. You're welcome. So now the common denominator, 4, no. The next multiple of 4 is 8. 3 doesn't go into 8 either. The next multiple of 4 is 12. Yes, 3 goes into 12. Now I go 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then I have my minus there. Then 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. And therefore I have negative 11 over 12. You're okay to do this though. You multiply this by 4 to make it 12, and you multiply this by 4. You're okay to do that. If you want to keep on doing this, and you multiply this by 3, and you multiply this by 3, because you want to make them common denominator. But the only thing, write the common denominator once. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to erase this. I'll repeat what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'm gonna, I know. So all of you got that. I have to change this to negative 2 over 3. Plus and minus just becomes minus 1 over 4. The common denominator is 12. I just write it once, okay? Now, to make the denominators 12, both of them, you have to multiply this denominator by 4. And whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And so negative 2 times 4 gives me negative 8. And that's what I write here, okay? And then here I have to multiply this by 3. And you have to multiply this by 3 to make this 12. But write the denominator once, don't write it twice. Don't write this twice. Write the denominator once, and this is the minus sign is right here, and then 1 times 3 is 3. That's what you get here. All right. So does that make sense? See, a lot of North Americans, when you maneuver a little bit and you do something different, sometimes like, what? So the same thing I do, I go 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 12 divided by 4 here is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. That's how I do it. Okay. But I'll go back to this as well so everybody could follow as well. Okay. Anybody want me to go over this again, or you got it now? So I'm assuming you got it. Okay. Because this, I'm going to repeat the steps again and again and again, because all of this is about that. Yeah. So now negative 8 minus 3 is negative 11 over 12. And you cannot reduce this any further. So that's where we keep it. Okay. Now, the second question is negative 5 over 8. See what Yusuf mentioned earlier. If you have a negative 1 over a negative 6, always cancel these signs out, because they can't, whenever they are like this, cancel them out. When in one fraction, if it's a negative on the numerator and a negative on the denominator, they just cancel each other out and it becomes a positive number. So this becomes negative 5 over 8. Plus 1 over 6, which gives me the common denominator here. You go to the big number. So 8, 6 doesn't go into 8 evenly. So you go to the next number, which is next multiple of 8 is 16. 6 that still doesn't go into 16. The next multiple to 8 after 16 is 24. So that's my common denominator. Okay. So if this 24 is my common denominator, then I know I have to multiply the 8 by 3, and I do the same thing to the negative 5. And then to make this 24, I multiply this by 4, and I do the same thing to the top. And therefore now negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. And plus here, the plus sign, and 1 times 4 is 4. Yeah. And now negative 15 plus 4 is negative 11 over 24. So that's the answer. Okay. Now 25 over 2. Here, what do I change this to? Everybody write the sign plus or minus. Yeah. Good. Mohammed bin Hussein, are you okay with that? Because you haven't attended the last lesson. You're okay with that? How we're changing to negatives to positive? Okay, yeah, I sent you the video. Beautiful, great, excellent. Okay, I want all of you guys to go and subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of good stuff in there, you know, even when you get into the higher level, you'll find some fun stuff to watch and some tricks and a lot of math. Okay, so negative and negative is plus. So this becomes 25 over 2 plus 3 over 4. The common denominator is, you go to the biggest number and you see the other number in the bottom. Does it go into it? Thanks. Does the other number go into it? Yes, 2 goes into the 4. So 4 is my lowest common denominator or my least common denominator. Now, this here 2, you have to make it 4, you multiply it by 2 to make it the common denominator, and then you do the same thing to the top. So now we wrote the denominator, but the top here will be 25 times 2, which is 50. Plus, and here, because it's 4 already, you don't have to multiply the top and bottom by anything, so you just keep the 13 the same. And therefore, the answer will be 50 plus 13 is 63 over 4. Now, Nigar, if you're following, let me know. Like, otherwise, we'll see how you do with this one, and then I'll repeat some stuff if needed. Okay. Okay. Go. Okay. Got it. Good. Now here we have a minus and negative, minus and a negative together. Still, the same thing applies. This becomes plus. Whenever you have two signs besides one another like this, the same rule applies. This becomes plus. So instead of writing plus 11 over 6 or positive 11 over 6, if we don't write the plus there, it means it's a plus. So we don't have to write the plus. If you write it, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not needed. Just not needed. Here you have a negative here and a negative there. Besides one another like this, they just become plus 11 over 18. Now, the common denominator here is 18. Because you go to the biggest number, if the smaller number on the bottom goes into the big number on the bottom, then that's your common denominator. Please don't go and say, well, you know, the common denominator, I'm just going to multiply these two. If you've been doing this, get rid of that habit. Like, honestly, like you come into this class, because my class is designed so that you get out of trouble. The problems that you have, get rid of them, because these create problems for you when you go further. So focus on what I'm doing here. I make this stuff a lot easier than a lot of teachers. And I know where everybody gets stuck and why kids are having problems in math. You know, for instance, in here, negatives all over the place, and students panic, but you could get rid of that dilemma very fast by what I'm showing you. Okay, so let's go back to this question. The way I do it, I go 18 divided by 6 is 3. 3 times 11 is 33, okay? Which is the same thing as saying, you know, you have to make this 18, you multiply it by 3 and you multiply this by 3. So that's 33 plus this here, because the 18 is there already, then the 11, you just keep it the same. Now we have 44 over 18. Yeah. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't stop here. Okay. Muhammad, just wait, give me 1 second. I'll get back to, okay. So just listen. Okay, hold on. Wait, can you explain why don't you multiply 18? Okay. Well, if you want to make 18, then you just multiply it by 1, don't you? And you multiply this, you do the same thing to the, are you changing anything here? You're not changing anything. And you don't want to multiply 18 and 6. Is that what you're asking, Mohammed? Oh, you understand? Okay, good, good. Yeah, good. All right. No, ask. If you're still not clear, ask me. I have a video about fractions. Okay, I'll email it to everybody. Just the basic fractions. Go watch that really carefully, because fractions are, you see, integers, multiplication table, integers, and then fractions. You have to master these to do well in math, especially fractions. If you struggle with fractions, then it's a problem. Fractions are not monster. Fractions, they're just normal numbers. They are as easy as all other numbers. You just have to know what you're doing. And then they don't become the nightmare or the monster that everybody thinks they are, you know? Okay, Muhammad, okay, good. Now, when the answer is 44 over 18, like this, if you could reduce the fraction and you leave it like this, a mark, you know, like a part mark is going to be taken away from your answer. Now, you notice that the top here is even, the bottom is even. Then I know I could reduce even numbers by 2. So 2 goes into 14 22 times, and 2 goes into 18 9 times. 22 over 9 is your final answer, because they cannot reduce anymore. One thing I want to say though, changing them to improper fractions and proper fractions, I'm not going to do that. I have that in my other video that I will send you about fractions. Fractions, make sure you understand them fully, you know. And if you could learn my way that I show it on the other video, it will help you a great deal. Okay, lots of people, it takes them a while to adjust to that, but once they adjust to it, then they say, wow, this is amazing. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. This is your homework. All right, so just make sure this is your homework. Wait, what's wrong if you don't reduce? It's not wrong, but it's not finished. No, it's not. I don't think they're gonna take you to court for this. Legal, not legal. I think it's just, it's improper. Okay, it's that you haven't finished you haven't finished the answer. Okay, you haven't finished the answer. We always reduce in fractions. That's why when I used to teach the grade 6 and 7 fractions, and my emphasis is reduce. That's the first thing we do. Always reduce fractions. That's the first lesson in fractions. Let's go to the next slide. Now they get a bit crazier. Okay, so here are 3 fractions. They might look a bit ugly, and maybe they're confusing now because it's 3 fractions. Not at all. Not at all. It's the same thing that we've been doing all the time with adding and subtracting fractions. All of this is about adding. See this here? This here is addition. This here is subtraction. Okay, so now we have -2 over 3. Again, this and this becomes -1/4. This and this becomes +5 over 6. Now, common denominator. I'm just going to put that right here. The biggest number is 6. 3 goes, but 4 doesn't. The next number, the next multiple is 12. 12 will be 8 because 4 goes into 12. You don't even have to try 3 again, because if it goes into 6, you don't even have to. Now it's all about the 4. We need a multiple that the 4 goes into, which is 12. And so 12 is your common denominator. Okay. 12 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times -2 is -4. And then we have the minus sign there. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 times 5 is 10. If you cannot see what I did, it's the same thing that multiplying this by 4 and multiplying this by 4. Oh, hold on a second. I made a mistake, didn't I? Did anybody catch the mistake? So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 times -2 is -8. Sorry. Minus 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 times 5 is 10. But again, you could just say multiply by 4 to make it 12, multiply it by 4, multiply it by 3, multiply it by 3, multiply it by 2, multiply it by 2 to make them all the same common denominator. Okay. Okay. So if you want to learn the way that I do common denominator, okay, I write the denominator first, okay, and then once I write the denominator, I work from here, and I divide the 12 by the first denominator. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 4 is the number that you have to multiply to the top to get the -8, okay, and then you write your minus sign, and then you go 12 divided by 4 gives you 3, then 3 is what you multiply to the top, and that's why we got 3. And then you write your plus sign, and then you go 12 divided by 6, it gives you 2. So 2 is what you multiply to the top. Oops. 2 is what you multiply to the top, and that gives you 10. This is how I do common denominator. But you keep on doing the same thing, though. That's why, you know, some teachers, you know, when they teach you, you have a different way of doing it. While they're doing it, just do it your way and show that it works for yourself. Hold on a second. When you're doing this math right here with me, you should have a paper and pen. You know, math, never think about it as biology or English, or, you know, you just listen. You know, it's best to start writing stuff with me, you know, and you say, you know, Sammy, I don't like the way he's doing common denominator, but I'm going to do it my way. You know, I'm going to write multiply by 2 here, multiply by 2, multiply by 3, multiply by 3, multiply by 4, multiply by 4. And then you do it your way. And then you see, did I get the same thing? Yes, I got the same thing. So we're all cool, you know. You did it the right way, I did it the right way. Okay, so I'm just gonna move on because of time. Yeah, so let's go to number 2. Again, when the negative is on the bottom in the first fraction, don't leave it like this. Put the negative on top. So that's the same as -5/8. Now, we said if a fraction has a negative on top and a negative on the bottom, cancel them out. So that's +1/6. This here, 2 negatives besides one another, they become +2/3. The common denominator here, 3 and 6 don't go into 8. So the next multiple is 16. None of them go. The next multiple is 24. Yeah, 6 and 3 go into 24. So my common denominator is 24. 24 divided by 8 is 3. 3 is what I multiply to the -5. I get -15. Plus 24 divided by 6 is 4. 4 what I multiply into the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus 24 divided by 3 is 8. 8 is what I multiply into the 2. That gives me 16. Now, -15 plus 16 is 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. So it's 5/24. I jumped over because -15 plus 16, it was easy for me to do faster. So -15 plus 16 gave me 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. So that's 5/24. Count. Isn't the 8 the negative number? So I said earlier, you always have to put it on top. So the first thing when I was talking about fractions, I say pay attention to this. -5/8 is the same as -5/8 like this, is the same as 5/8. That's hazardous. Don't keep it like, don't never leave it like this, especially when you're adding and subtracting fractions. Always throw the negative on top. Yeah. Now let me move on to the next page. Okay. So now we're gonna mix them up, multiplying, dividing, also adding. So now it's about order of operations. So it becomes a little bit more challenging than the ones that we did before. Now here, I'm just gonna write the answer here. Is the answer gonna be negative or positive for this question right here? It's multiplying and dividing together. So what would it be? Yeah. Okay, good. So because we have 1, 2, 3, that's an odd number of negatives. When we're multiplying and dividing, we could just count the negatives. The answer is going to be negative. Okay, so let's make sure the answer is going to be negative. Now I'm just going to write this as 15 over 32 times 4 over 5. The division, you change it to multiplication and you flip. So switch, flip, 16 over 9. We know the answer is negative. Okay, so we got rid of the negative signs because we know the answer is negative. Now, some of you might say, why don't we do 2 at a time instead? You don't have to do 2 at a time. Do all of them all at once. So you have a dilemma here, the division sign. You want to change that to multiplication, flip this, and that's what we did. Now we could start reducing. But let me tell you something about reducing. When you're reducing, check within if you could reduce. No, but you don't have to reduce this with this. If you could reduce this with this as well, you could do that. You could jump over to the next one. As long as it's the bottom and the top that you're reducing together. It could be the top and the bottom of everything, anything, but that's only when you're multiplying and dividing fractions. You don't do that when you're adding. You don't reduce when you're adding fractions, okay? So here, right away, I see 16 goes into itself once. It goes into 32 twice. 5 goes into itself once. It goes into 15 3 times. This 3 goes into itself once. It goes into 9 here 3 times. This 2 goes into itself once. It goes into 4 twice. Can we reduce any further? No. So we have 1 times 2 times 1, that's 2. And we have 1 times 1 times 3, that's 3. Is this a bit fast? Okay. Reducing fractions, like the first thing, like teachers in middle school, they should spend like every class, they remind students when they do fractions about reducing fractions. Anyone wants me to repeat this? Because I went a little bit fast. I think you guys, your pace are becoming faster at understanding things. So I went a bit fast. So if you want me to repeat this, ask me. I could just rewind and repeat it. Okay. So, okay, so you understand. Good. So I'm going to move on. Okay. So BEDMAS, again, we said order of operations, BEDMAS. Brackets first, exponents. We're not dealing with exponents. And then division and multiplication, you do that first, and then addition and subtraction. You see division before multiplication, no, you don't have to do it in that order. You do it in the order it is in. See here, multiplication came first. When it comes to division and multiplication, the order is you go from left to right and you do as from left to right instead. Okay, but anyways, so now let's go to this right here. And now here we have the 4 over 5. Leave that alone. That's multiplication. Now here, this has to change into 3 over 8. These two signs besides one another, they give me minus 7 over 4. So that's what we should do first. Now we have 4 over 5 times, we have to do what's inside the brackets first, because that's what that's saying. And inside the brackets, we have fractions that are subtracted. So we do common denominator is 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3 minus 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14. So that's what we have there. And this would be, I'm just going to bring it to the top here, will be 4 over 5 times 3 minus 14 is negative 11 over 8, which equals, now can we reduce this way? No, but we can reduce this way. 4 goes into itself once, it goes into 8 twice. So this 1 times negative 11 gives me negative 11, 5 times 2 gives me 10. And that's the answer. Yeah. So this question here is your homework. So I'm just gonna keep on going to the next page, and that's gonna be the last page. And then I'm gonna open the floor to the questions. Okay. remember your homework. So I hope you're taking pictures of the homework, but when I finish, I'll go back to the slides and make sure that you could take pictures of what your homework is. All right, the next slide. Now this becomes a little bit more challenging. Lots of things here, but still it's BEDMAS. So here, if you look at this, we have to do the brackets first, okay? And I do everything all at once. So here, I have to do inside the brackets first. So this will be 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1 times -5 is -5. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times -3/4 times 6/5. Just give me 1 second, guys. I have to respond to this. So just give me 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, I thought you were talking about somebody else. So you can hear me now again. Okay. So -5 plus 4 is -1. So -1/6. We write the times -3/4 again, and we change the division to multiplication, and we flip the 5/6. But we do this operation here inside the brackets first. Okay. So -5 plus 4 is -1. That gives me -1/6 times -3/4 times 6/5. And now we know the answer is going to be positive because we have 2 negatives. Now it becomes all just multiplication. Yeah. So here it was inside the brackets, there's addition, there's multiplication, there's division. That we change the division to multiplication and change this to 6/5. At the same time, I was doing what's inside the brackets first. So I did a common denominator, 6, and then I get this on top. Of course, you could just go that times 2 times 2. You do that your way if you like to do it your way the whole time. But I just have a fast way of doing it, and I keep on doing that. Now this becomes -1/6 times -3/4 times 6/5. We know the answer is going to be positive, so just get rid of the signs. We don't need them anymore. When you're reducing, sometimes it's you could go 3 goes into itself once and it goes into 6 twice, but it's smarter to go the 6 and the 6 here, they go. Both of them, they become 1. They cancel each other out. Okay. And now, can we reduce any more diagonally this way, this way? No, we can't. So therefore, 3 times 1 is just 3, and 4 times 5 is 20. And this, therefore, this gives me just, we don't need that positive there, so just 3/20. All right. So now it's time for you to ask questions. This is your homework, though. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna yeah. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move on and do a few harder questions from the last bit of it. Okay, so we were here. So I said this is your homework, but I'm gonna go just do a little bit more so that you become more confident with the hard stuff. I'm gonna go over it. All right. So here, 5/2 times, you could write this as -5/4, or it doesn't matter if you put the negative on the bottom here, it doesn't matter because it's not adding and subtracting, so it doesn't matter, but I like the negative to always be on top. Okay, so that's the first thing I need to do. Minus, you know, this here, since it's multiplied, if you want to start, okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, so just because these two things are multiplied and we have 2 negatives, that makes it a positive. So I'm just going to get rid of these. And then I'm going to say this is -3/4 times 8/9. Now here, can I reduce? I cannot, so I'm just going to multiply tops together and bottoms together. Minus, here I could reduce. 4 goes into itself once and goes into 8 twice. 3 goes into itself once, it goes into 9 3 times, which gives me 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 3 on the bottom is 3. Okay, so these two things are multiplied. We do them first. Don't worry about that minus sign, just keep it here, but you're multiplying these two numbers, so you could just start reducing them like that. And then we have negative 25/8 minus 2/3. The common denominator here is going to be 24, because 3 doesn't go into 8, 3 doesn't go into 16, 3 goes into 24. 24 divided by 8 is 3. 3 times negative 25 is negative 75. And then we have the minus right here, and then 24 divided by 3 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, so the same as multiplying this by 3 to make it 24, so you do the same thing to the top. Multiplying this by 8 to make it 24, you do the same thing to the top. So the same thing. Now, negative 75 minus 16, that's 1,718,89, so it's negative 91/24. Can we reduce this? No, I don't think we can. So that's your final answer. Does this make sense? Yeah, I'll go over it again. Yeah, so I'm gonna do it again, okay? Tells me I have to do what's in the brackets first. So I have to do this operation first right here. And this is 5/2. We have to change this to times. And then you know what? I flip this, so switch, flip, so 5/4, -4. But you could write the negative here, and it's the same as having the negative with the 4. Both of them are the same. Yeah. Minus brackets here. We get rid of the negatives here because when you're multiplying these two here, you have two negatives, so they just become positive. Now you have 3/4 inside this brackets times 8/9. So let's do this brackets first. Can we reduce diagonally? No, we can. So the only thing we left with is to multiply tops, negative 25, and multiply bottoms, that's 8. Here, if we look here, and if we want to reduce, yes, we could reduce. 4 goes into itself once, goes into 8 twice. 3 goes into itself once, it goes into 9 3 times. Now this becomes minus 2/3, because 1 times 2 is 2 on top, 1 times 3 is 3 on the bottom. Now the common denominator here is 24. You could do it your way, but for me, I just go 24 divided by 8 is 3. 3 times negative 25 is negative 75. Minus 24 divided by 3 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And therefore, negative 75 minus 16 gives me negative 91/24. Yusuf, does that make sense? Now, please, if you have any question, any comment, just mention it. You could go on the mic and talk if you like. We have about 4 minutes or so left, 5 minutes. It's time maybe to ask a question. If you're, yeah, so reduce, it's called reducing. Like you're when you're multiplying fractions, you're reducing. So always, if you could reduce from top and bottom, always do. Here we couldn't, but here we could. And that's why reduce before you go to the next step. Otherwise, the numbers get big on you. Yeah. Good. Mohammed bin Hussein, how did it go today? Your first day today?
Went good.
Okay, excellent. Anybody, any questions, anything that you want me to clarify? Here we cannot reduce because 91 and 24 we cannot reduce. If you're adding fractions, 3/5, plus 15 over 9. Don't think you could reduce. When we're adding, we don't do any reducing. You just do common denominator. Okay. So the reducing has to happen in here or in here. It cannot happen between here and there because that's a minus. Okay, so if you have questions, please ask me. If you don't, what I'll do, I'll write what the answer is for every question, and then just besides the homework. So every question that you have, I'll write the final answer for it. So you could check when you finish the homework if you got it wrong or right. Okay, so I'll do that before I stop the video today. But if you're good, that's good enough for today. I think you're today you got a lot of stuff. Next week we'll be going to algebra. Okay, and algebra involves fractions. So these things will carry on with us the whole time.
Thank you, Amma Sami.
You're most welcome, Jumana.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Do we leave the Zoom now?
Yeah, if you don't have any questions, yeah.
Okay,
All right, Muhammad, take care, bro. So the answers, here the answer is going to be 8 over 3. So when you do this, you should get 8 over 3. This, I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm not going to show you the answer, but you could ask me next time. For this here, the answer is going to be 11 over 4. For this, the answer is going to be negative 31 over 10. And for this, the answer is going to be negative 2 over 5. And these are the answers for the homework. I hope you get them all right. So thanks again for watching. Till next time, bye-bye.